said anything else. Solomon? Make sure the phone is speaking and get Marion here to use the phone to take. She can move around. Why should I tell her to move with you?
She doesn't know.
Tell her to come with the phone and tell her to move with you quickly, right now. Good evening. Good evening, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lina Galba, and I'm honoured to be your MC tonight. I would like to welcome you all for the Eliteikon Global Investment Landscape Dinner and extend a warm welcome and thank all our guests of honours. Eliteikon is a platform that was set up to bring together investors and top projects in areas such as IT, startups, real estate, infrastructure, energy, oil and gas, blockchain technology, aeronautical industries, and many more. The ethos is bringing together like-minded people so partnerships can be created between private and government sectors. Never before has an event been done where you will find stupendous quality and great care to every detail, so all our guests feel welcome and you all have an opportunity to network so many of you can come together in unity to collaborate, build relationships, and so there is further growth for your businesses. I would like now to speak a little bit about the inspirational woman who is behind the success of Eliteikon and tonight. Faika Islam is the founder and CEO of Eliteikon. She's also the owner and chairperson of MBS Group of Companies, CEO of ISPBK, and chairperson of Koza Al Maqsood Trust. She started a career at 22, and she climbed the corporate ladder quickly and became a CEO of 4 companies in a short space of time. She has over 10 years' experience with corporations globally. She's on the board of directors for international companies. She's also a philanthropist and a humanitarian. She works for children's charities and helps empower women by working for women's rights. She is also a well-known coach and leader and advisor to the royal family. She holds many accolades and awards. I would like to invite the dynamic lady, Faika Islam, on stage.
Good evening, Your Highnesses, Excellency, colleagues, and esteemed business leader. Welcome to the Elite Global Landscape Investment Gala dinner. It gives me great pleasure to promise this evening. I want to thank our partner and sponsors, the Government of UAE, the Government of Commerce, AmCham Dubai, US Chamber of Commerce, Lithuania US, Howard Jackson, DLA Piper, and Give All Organization. Please enjoy this evening, sit back and relax and learn more about some of our groundbreaking investment opportunities, bringing together some of the world's most cutting-edge technologies in the world's most pressing area. We aim to do well by doing good, building together for the better future. Thank you so much.
We will now be having some speakers who will be speaking about various topics pertaining to investment and business growth. Her Highness, Sheikha Jawahar bin Khalifa Al Khalifa, at a young age has achieved so much and is an inspiration to many young women. After graduating from university, she has worked in various fields such as fashion, office management and real estate. She has also worked in the government sector. Now she's an entrepreneur and philanthropist. I would like to invite Her Highness Sheikha Jawahar bin Khalifa Al Khalifa on stage, please. Have your presence.
I can say it. Okay. Good evening. We haven't done this for a while, so just bear with me, please. Did you guys know that 225 million jobs were terminated during the pandemic? And working hours have been reduced 8.8% around the world, which is even less than what hit us in the end of 2008. $3.7 trillion are the losses of the individual's income around the world. Now, forgive me if the numbers are not accurate. Google is to blame, not me. Aren't we all blessed tonight to be here looking fabulous, dressed up and meeting in one of the most beautiful hotels here in Dubai, opening new doors for each other, introducing new opportunities, and of course opening a new blank page, and only us decide what we are going to be writing on that page. Saying that, what are we going to do to regain our losses? And I'm sure a lot of us, and every one of us actually had some loss that we had during the pandemic. Okay, I'm not gonna read. I don't like to read. I'm just gonna speak my mind, I'm sorry. I don't like to read from speeches. I like to speak out my mind. So what I'm gonna say is, a lot of us and all of us I'm very sure that we had a lot of losses during the pandemic, even if it's personal, it's professional. We have lost a lot, and now we have the chance, we are blessed enough to have the chance to come back here and live a normal life and starting to get back on top of our games, to regain the losses that we have been through, and also to give more opportunities to people who are even weaker than us. Today, I am guessing most of us have good jobs, have companies, we are able to invest in different sectors, but a lot of people are not that fortunate. And I think us being here tonight is the best option to give ourselves and people who are below this level, who are just people who are hard workers. And also, we have the chance to bloom our economies, our societies that really, really need us at this time. So, what are we doing tonight together, and in the future, whether it was short term or long term? What are we going to do together to fix what happened in this pandemic, during this pandemic? I will just give you a small brief. So my answer is, I am going to try to make real businesses and real projects that will serve three of my goals. Number one, to recover some of my losses professionally. Number two, to have my projects to have some way in contributing back to our economies. And number three, to help people as much as we can who lost their jobs. So I would start in saying that we are very much blessed to be here in the land of opportunities, the United Arab Emirates, which is the first place which is giving us a lot of reasons and a lot of support and a lot of chances to get back on our game and do what we want to do. And that's our first blessing. Also, if we are talking about the businesses and projects that we're gonna work on here in the UAE, then I would say pick any business in the UAE and it will start booming, especially with Expo just around the corner. Also, given the policies in this country, that helps every and each one of us, wherever we come from, to be very much comfortable and successful. If we're only talking about the UAE, also as coming from Bahrain, also GCC countries have many opportunities in many sectors. Manufacturing, we've got real estate, we've got technology, we've got commodities. A lot of these opportunities are on the table, and all we can do is put our forces together and try as much as we can to succeed and recover. Thank you very much, and sorry, I'm not going to read any more.
Thank you, Your Highness. That was beautiful. Our next speaker is Scott Marshall Brandon. Scott Marshall Brandon is a consultant, innovation strategist, and a solutions architect. He was Executive Director of Lincoln Center and now is the Director of Litroff Consulting LLC. He's a board member at the Corner Whitman Walker Center, board chair for Compass Charter School and GEM Schools. He believes strongly in education and has helped start 12 schools and start 5 non-profit companies. He currently serves as a producer and writer for Newswire FM and is also an author. I would like to welcome Scott Marshall Brandon on stage, please.
Good evening, and welcome Your Highnesses and Your Excellencies and distinguished guests. It's my honor to be here. I'm sorry, 1 second.
Good evening, Scott.
Oh, technology. Well,
here's some information.
I'm going to go off script too. Litroff Consulting, the company that my wife and I own, is what you would call a boutique consulting company. We only take on jobs, we only work with companies that have both a financial goal and a social goal. Our belief is the two go hand in hand. Our belief is the two are very much related in the modern economy. Tonight, I'm going to present 5 different projects that Litroff is currently working on, with the signature project being the project that is most near and dear to my heart, and I hope to many of you, which is to actually address the questions that were just raised. How do we fix it? How do we move forward? It's my belief we imagine what is possible. And we create that imaginative capacity in our children, in our workforce, in everything we do. The first thing I'm going to talk about is fine art and the items we represent. I'm starting with the art world because I come from the art world, as mentioned. I was executive director at Lincoln Center. I was an artist myself, a practicing artist. We are connected to and represent some of the finest art around the world. In fact, almost 100 of the great masters, ranging from Rembrandt to Picasso, to current artists, Banksy, and many other contemporary artists. We also represent a collection of automobiles ranging from Ferrari collections to some 100 different collections that are truly, truly, truly one-of-a-kind collections. And finally, we represent real estate. Real estate around the world. We have access to real estate in UAE, in the United States, in Europe, in Asia. And once again, properties that range from several million to actually well over $1 billion, up to $2 billion. Some of the one-of-a-kind, every real estate, every fine art, every transaction that we undertake is a private transaction. Next project is ethanol. Now, everybody knows about ethanol. Ethanol has been added to our gas for a number of years. Ethanol has been told, at least in the United States, to increase the ethanol amount in our gasoline. The problem is, and maybe it's true here, the problem is that we have a commodities problem. The corn that's raised for the ethanol has a commodities problem. We, working with a new patented technology to bring any biomass to use in the retrofitting of ethanol plants, not only in the United States, but around the world. And as probably many of you know, most of these plants are lying dormant. They have been changed from ethanol plants to literally sitting there waiting to be reinstated. We believe this is a new model for global replication. There are hundreds and hundreds of ethanol plants around the world that we believe can be retrofitted using these new technologies. We have investments based on agreements, and there's an equity percentage in each agreement. And I'm presenting you some of the financial data along with not just the opportunities for these various projects. Another project that we have is international renewable energy. And this is primarily happening in the 27 most underserved countries in the world. These countries reach well over 1 billion people. They primarily are in sub-Saharan Africa, but not entirely. We all know that carbon credits are being used by major companies around the world to meet their own carbon footprint, their own fossil and carbon footprint. What this does is it takes the IREX, which is an international recognized standard for changing the technologies, changing the carbon footprints, and adding a P-REC to it, or a piece credit to it. So a company like Amazon or a company like Google, who have already invested in these, buy these P-RECs after these projects have been started. And what we're able to do is take 10% of the money that's invested in it. When the returns come from that, reuse that to buy more IRECs and P-RECs. So there's a continual kind of iterative process to replenish the process of these P-RECs. It's the only one of its kind that we know of around the world where they're combining P-RECs and IRECs, carbon credits, carbon footprints, and reaching the most underserved and underdeveloped and underserved populations in the world. Part of the reason for doing it, not unlike the COVID question, is if we don't address it around the world, how are we addressing it even locally? It has to be something that gets addressed around the world. As I mentioned, sub-Saharan Africa, its impact is well over 1 billion people. The investment initially is 10 million. That 10 million will then relate to 100 million in initial investment. That initial investment, as I mentioned, of 100 million will then replenish itself so that we continue to bring this forward continually in an iterative way. Information on the return. Now, as mentioned, I was at Lincoln Center for 25 years, and my work at Lincoln Center was to study the role of imagination in our personal and professional lives. Now, what does that mean, to study imagination? I mean, what is imagination? Imagination is the capacity to think of things as if they could be otherwise, to ask the what-if question. So much of what you've done in Dubai, in the UAE, is to address that what-if question. The question of how do you bring forth, using the resources that you have, to not only help yourselves, but to help the citizenry, to help the world in a way that is now one of the shining examples of the world, which is why I'm here. Because this is a remarkable part of the world that, quite honestly, is changing the world. And it's only through that type of process, imaginative capacity building, that we bring all the people to that process. Now, one could say we're born with imagination, or imagination is developed. It's my argument that imagination is part of our DNA. It's part of who we are as people. The question is, what do we do with it? Not unlike language. Everybody learns a language or multiple languages. The question becomes, do you become semi-literate or are you a poet? The question is, what do you do with it? Not just do you have the God-given capacity or the nature-provided capacity, but what do you do with it? And it's through that development of imagination, that capacity that allows us to think of things as if they could be otherwise, that we start to think anew, that we start to ask different questions. We work in a cross-sectoral way. It's an uphill battle. It's always about change, and I'm sure everyone in this room struggles with change. Change is a very complex process. We all say we want it, but how do we get there? How do we create that possibility within our business, within our communities, within our nations, to reach that potential? And I'm not interested in just the Steve Jobs of the world. I'm interested in everyone being more imaginative, more creative, more innovative, because that's how we get to change. And if you look at change in its true sense of its structure, and you backward map from innovation, and this is highlighted in a book I wrote a number of years ago called Imagination First, Shameless Self-Promotion, I agree, that we talk about backward mapping from innovation to creativity to imagination. And that's how we get to the process that I'm talking about. I'll come back to that. Another project is, everyone's familiar with virtual reality, correct? Virtual reality goggles, they're actually fairly commonplace. I was brought a project not too long ago that combines virtual reality with olfactory scent, because scent, smell, is the most direct relationship to our senses, to our memories. So we came up with the idea, what if you combine virtual reality, scent, and imagination? Could you use virtual reality and scent to help people become more perceptive, become more reflective, to become more empathetic, become more risk-taking, to tolerate ambiguity? These are elements of an imaginative thinker that you can develop, you can inculcate, not just when you're 3 years old, but when you're 53 years old, when you're whatever age. So we're looking at this new technology. This does not exist anywhere in the world. How you bring these capacities together to develop that imaginative skill, that imaginative capacity. You're probably familiar that many years ago, there was, movies were using scent. So we like to talk about how scent has been around forever as a capacity for change. We're working with the Neuroaesthetics Lab at Johns Hopkins because we want to study the brain research. We want to study the science behind this, not just the technology, but the science behind this, to see how what part of the brain gets activated, what part of the learning centers get activated to bring this to bear. So the question is, can imagination be taught? And as I've mentioned, and I see some of you nodding that you believe it can be, everybody that I've talked to actually believes it can be, except when you push the question, often you get the question back, isn't it, it's the nature-nurture question. Don't we develop it, or are we born with it? I would argue both. We're born with it, and it's part of what we learn and how we learn. So we came up with the concept of an imagination index. So imagine for a moment that you're the CEO of this company, and you want everybody in your company to be more innovative, to ideate more, to be more creative. This is a product, this is a technology that does not exist, that allows us to talk about how do you filter, aggregate, and accelerate information within a company to reach that capacity for imaginative learning. We're working with some of the finest minds around the world, whether the names are familiar to you. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, one of the great thinkers of the world, wrote the book Flow. Ervin Laszlo, complex science philosopher in Europe, twice nominated for a Nobel Prize. The Council on Competitiveness, which is a workforce development, international workforce development organization. As I mentioned, also the Johns Hopkins organization. And our job is to research, to study how imaginative capacities can be built within any professional context, any educational context, any cultural context. We even believe that once you've created this new technology for businesses, we can expand that to everyday life, into the gaming community, into the cultural community, into the education community. The investment is relatively small. The return is huge. We're offering equity in the company because we believe that that's the only way that this is going to develop. And the potential of this, from our research, once again, is massive. And with that, I'd like to thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here in Dubai. It's my third visit in Dubai, and look forward to continuing. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for that informative and interesting speech. Our next speaker is Mr. Obaidi Aiton. He is the COO of the Private Investment Group. He has 7 years of private wealth experience and has successfully completed over millions of dollars of advisory and financial transactions across Europe, USA, and the MENA region. I would like to invite Mr. Obaidi Aiton on stage, please.
See how close I get to the microphone, but no, thanks for having me. As you can tell, I'm not from this part of the world. I'm from the UK, and I've lived here for close to 3 years now. Now, I guess everyone always says, why did you come to the UAE? And I thought, well, it is in the centre of the earth where I can speak to Singapore in the morning and then speak to California late in the evening. So logistically, it makes a lot of sense. But the purpose of what I wanted to talk to you about today is about kind of this momentum and where we're all kind of putting our focus, where we're all spending our money. And I think what COVID really allowed us to do is look at what's in front of us, look at what's around us. And that really pushes me on to sustainability and climate change. So for myself, I mean, I've heavily been in the private sector. So a lot of the time, anything to do with climate change and sustainability has been heavily public sector. And everyone always says, Obi, why does the private sector not get involved with some of these big developments and these big pushes towards lowering emissions? And I say, well, it's because us as investment managers have a duty to make money. And it's quite a tough conversation when you have this lovely development, if it's solar panels, if it's clean technology, that takes 10 years until it makes a profit. The good thing is now, especially in this part of the world, with data, with really better information flow, the private sector is now pushing forward towards clean technologies, anything around ESG. You're going to see 2 years before Most of these companies are becoming profitable. This can be anything in the lubricant sector, this can be anything in the electric vehicle. As I said, I could probably label many others, but my point is the good thing about this region is I'm from a big family back home in England, and when I came here I thought this region works very much like a family. You have family members who work in the public sector and the private sector. You have both sectors working very closely, which is something I've never seen in Europe. And I always boast, and again, not being from the region, I boast to other people saying, I'm based in the UAE and we do this. And they say, oh, I'm very jealous. So my point is, when we look at the more profitable sectors now, especially from our perspective, we're now looking at lowering emissions. We're looking at taking as much of carbon out of the air as possible. We're looking at food security. I mean, we all saw how vulnerable we are being in no matter what country you're in. So overall, the purpose of my chat was really to talk about the momentum of the private sector moving into more ESG-focused investments. And as I said, to summarise, that purely has been around just the improvement of technology, data, that's allowed us to, well, see some profits sooner rather than later. And the good thing about the UAE, as I said, we have some very good figureheads, heroes as I call them, who are promoting the right things. We have some of the second, third generation of this region cycling, they're eating better, they're using heart devices to monitor what they do, what they eat. So the good thing about that is growing up as, especially a second, third generation in this region, when you have these role models doing these types of things, and you know that the consumer market is going to focus more on these types of areas, then for us as a private sector, we know where those consumers are going to spend their money. So we can predict, we can look ahead of time. And I guess, as I said, the UAE is brilliant in doing that because, I say we, but you are very small and you're a growing population. You're attracting a lot of incredible brains, technologies, universities, healthcare providers. And I think it's brilliant as a platform, not only for PR, but actually to do some things here. So I really want to kind of keep it short and sweet, but as I said, to summarise, it's incredible. I think we should all group together, I guess you can say unite together to focus on thinking more about looking after this world, looking at the clean technology sector, looking at the sustainability sector, because you'll find that profits are there sooner rather than later now. And thanks to technology and thanks to, I guess, the public sector, especially here, and how they're pushing towards a lot of different movements, and also with Expo coming up, creating a good image around the country. So for us as a private sector coming into the region to spend money, it's a lot of confidence when your public sector kind of lays a nice path in front of you. So thank you very much for listening. Keep it short, sweet, enjoy your food, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vejaiton, for that lovely speech. We will now be having a short video message from the US Chamber of Commerce, Steve Lutz, Vice President of Middle East Affairs.
And while I wish I was there with you in person, I am very grateful for this opportunity to share a message virtually. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest business advocacy organization, representing the interests of more than 3 million American companies of every size and sector and geography across every country. And on behalf of the Chamber, I want to acknowledge and express our appreciation to the host of today's forum in Geneva, Howard Jackson Real Estate and Eliteikon. Thank you for organizing this important discussion and highlighting the importance of the bilateral commercial investment relationship our two nations enjoy. And I want to briefly talk about that relationship, but first share a bit of context considering where we are today. COVID-19, of course, has affected all of us as individuals, families, our societies, our businesses, and our governments, and certainly our economies. And while the human toll and loss of life is unimaginable, hard to fathom, the economic loss has also been substantial. And during crises like this, it's vital that we pull closer to your friends, your allies, and work together to come through the darkness. And I believe that the U.S.-UAE relationship embodies that type of strong and collaborative spirit. We have worked together so that we can emerge from this challenge stronger together. And much of that has to do with our economic ties. As I believe many of you know, since 2019, the UAE has been the largest and #1 export destination in the MENA region for years. In 2020, that totaled nearly $15 billion in exports. It's also a substantial investor into the United States. That includes institutional organizations like the Baba and individuals and families from across the range of the U.S. economy. These investments in the United States and our exports to the UAE are more than just dollars and cents. The real bottom line is that jobs are created and the American families that are supported and the small businesses that help to thrive from these investments and the exports. And at the U.S. Chamber, we are quite optimistic about the future of the U.S.-UAE economic relationship and the strength and growth of our economies. Here in the U.S., the Chamber is leading an effort to pass a bill that will make much needed and strategic investment in our infrastructure and prepare growth. At the same time, we're fighting against a massive tax increase that could imperil the full potential of our economic recovery. In the UAE, we look forward to the UAE hosting Expo, a truly global event, and pursuing dynamic initiatives like the Projects of the 50 to help transform the UAE's economy to a global investment hub that fully embraces a knowledge-based, entrepreneurial, and innovative economy. There's so much potential, there's so much opportunity, and of course, a lot of work for us to do. So I wish you well as you engage in your discussions today and the beautiful gala, and look forward to hopefully seeing you all soon. Thank you very much. Enjoy your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Arshi Ayub Mohammed Zavarian. She is a senior advisor to the Royal Family Offices, UAE. She's also CEO at Trustwoods Trade Group UAE. She's on the board of directors at the Abu Dhabi Art Society and a board member at the Al Swadi Group and Al Emirat United. She was a co-founder of Hearts, Emirates Council, and is part of World Peace. She is an UAE ambassador. Arshi Ayub Mohammed Zavarian.
Very good evening to all our guests over here. Distinguished members of the business community, colleagues, more like family, and all our audiences over here. It's a real pleasure to be among all of you and address this audience. As the CEO of the Trustwoods Trade Group and also senior advisor to His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Isa bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi, our focus has always been to identify and invest into projects of national importance. Something that we have been collectively focused on is sustainability and climate change. We have identified genetic modification, which is leading to massive carbon control, but at the same time covering aspects of manufacturing, food security, and waste management. And wonderful colleagues and partners have been instrumental or rather pivotal in our support over there. Another aspect that we have been focused upon is our investment into advanced sciences, and of course, all aligned with the vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who we collectively not just admire, but appreciate the far side of being able to build a knowledge-based economy here in the UAE. We are at the brink of the expo, and I think this is the best time to be in the UAE, a country that supports peace, prosperity, and more importantly, people. Finally, I know that everybody is looking forward to start speaking with each other and engaging with one another, so I will conclude my remarks by adding a quote that I am deeply inspired by the founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed, that man is immortal, but his work is not. Therefore, your work is greater than your wealth. We should be known by the work we do and not by the titles or anything else. Thank you very much once again. I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Arshi, for that beautiful speech, as always. Our next speaker is Sahel Ali. Sahel Ali is a partner at DLA Piper in the UK, one of the largest international law firms in the world. Sahel has promoted to partner as one of the firm's youngest ever partners. Sahel's clients include multinational corporations, global banks and hedge funds, governments and sovereign funds. He's acted on some of the largest, most complex and high-profile legal mandates globally. Sahel graduated in law from Oxford University and the Harvard Business School. He has won a plethora of awards and recognitions and has been described as one of the brightest legal talents and a future generation leader. I would like to invite Sahel Ali on stage, please.
Thanks very much. Wow, what an intro, Lena. I think the check will be in the post for you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and assalamu alaikum, respected members, distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think in England they call this the graveyard slot, where you're one of the last speakers, I think. It's the time where attention is waning, the mind is starting to wander, and the stomachs are starting to rumble. And so I'm very mindful of the fact that you are about to engage in networking and enjoy your food. So I'll try and keep this short and sweet, so my speech is only 45 minutes long. I'm kidding. Look, I get involved and attend lots of these corporate events, and in particular these investment dinners. And I sometimes walk away thinking, what's so special about this event or this evening? But what an incredible evening this is, I have to say. I mean, I've been mesmerised in the build-up to this, speaking to FICA in particular, and some of the investment opportunities that they have. It's not only the sheer innovation, I think, that's on display, but it's also the potential impact that some of these projects can have. And, you know, it's, I think, no coincidence that the Global Landscape Investment Dinner is taking place here in the Middle East, because the Middle East has been at the heart of so much financial and technological advancements over the last couple of decades. I'm delighted to be here both in a personal and a professional capacity. I mean, first of all, let me thank FICA Islam for giving me the opportunity to come here, and I know how tirelessly she has worked and her team have worked to put this event on, particularly during COVID-19. So I think, can we just show our appreciation for FICA and her team for this event this evening? From a professional perspective, it also gives me wonderful pleasure to be here, and for DLA Piper in particular, to be associated with some of these groundbreaking and really pioneering projects. It's even greater, I think, to see so many of these projects focused on creating real sustainable impact. And as a Muslim, and I think as many of you are here are too, I think the events and the opportunities here really go to the heart of what we are as human beings. And there's one verse in the Quran which has always resonated with me and has increasingly resonated with me as I've got older, as I've got greyer over the years. And that verse says, and forgive me if I get the translation slightly wrong, but it says that your wealth and your children are an adornment, but real enduring good deeds are what create a better future and hope. And the one thing that I think that COVID has taught us is that we are so connected to one another, and we live in a globalized world. We're dependent on one another. And I think with such increasingly complex and far-reaching supply chains, it's really important for us all to do our bit, whether it's as investors, whether it's as suppliers, whether it's as entrepreneurs. And I think, you know, the saying that we can go fast alone, but we can go further by going there together has always resonated with me. The other thing that I think COVID has taught us is the importance of digital transformation. And I think the importance of making our businesses more agile, more consumer friendly, and more resilient. And I think some of these projects here today hopefully will help achieve that. And why do I say that? I say that because natural resources are on the wane. So whether it's water, whether it's oil and gas, these are natural resources which are depleting. And you know, sometimes as a lawyer, I often get asked, you know, what are the things that we should be worried about? What are the things? How can we risk mitigate some of the things in our businesses? And I honestly think that the biggest risk that all businesses face is climate change and ESG-related issues, whether that's environment, whether that's social, and whether that's governance issues. They will impact all and every one of us, whether it's in our personal capacity or whether it's our businesses. And I think it's something, ESG and climate change are things that we cannot tackle alone or indeed overnight. And that's where I think it's imperative for us to make those sound investment choices now. DLA, our firm, has just been appointed as the UK's advisor to COP26, which is the United Nations Cooperation of the Parties Summit, which is taking place in Glasgow in November. So it's something that I know that all governments, but particularly the UK government, is very focused on and alive to. So I wish every one of you all the success. I think it's amazing to be here in this room. Some very inspiring people, some very inspiring projects, and I think you will do incredibly well. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sohail, for that informative speech. Our next speaker is Mr. Anjem Malik. He's an investor, developer, constructor, financer, and has over 25 years' experience in real estate investment, development, and construction. Mr. Malik has over 15 years' experience in the energy sector. Mr. Malik is involved in multi-billion-dollar projects globally. I'd like to invite Mr. Anjem Malik on stage, please.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum, to His and Her Royal Highness, to His and Her Excellencies, and to all our VIP guests tonight here. I appreciate everyone come out in this pandemic time of era that we are in. My name is Anjem Malik, as Alina has elaborated. I'm an investor, developer, constructor, realtor, and finance department. Anyways, let me just get my clicker, sorry. Okay, basically we are here today, simple. I'm not going to talk about a lot of speech and everything else. I'll just go quickly over so everybody can have their food and network. We're involved with turnkey basis projects, grid funding, solar, hydro, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, wastewater treatment, and water desalination. Types of fundings, there's 3 different types of fundings that we have available. There's a World Bank humanitarian funding program which requires sovereign guarantee, and that has no limit. It depends on the country's credit, and if you have good credit rating, we can raise billions of dollars on any sector that is humanitarian and or related to infrastructure, oil and gas, what have you, as long as humanitarian. Second loan is a trust fund that lends at 2%. It's a loan, again requires a sovereign guarantee. We also have a relationship with the Korean Consortium Fund that is private, and it can come into any country that has a large-scale project, and they can be doing any of the projects where they're starting at 100 million and over, and they can do complete project turnkey basis. Current projects that we're involved in, some of the projects we personally involved are solar farms in Malaysia, Sri Lanka. We're also involved in some power plants, getting involved in US, in Nevada. Past development projects, I have done it last time also, that we were involved, lucky enough, to be part of building World Trade Center on the mechanical and engineering end of the World Trade Center, Tower 1. World Financial Center, everybody knows, only one and only one in Manhattan. World Financial Center, we were part of rebuilding the entry pavilion. We were also lucky enough to work with Scanstar Global. Everybody knows we were involved in advanced science research on the mechanical and entire building. We were involved in City College of New York and advanced science research entire building. We were involved with Scanstar. There was another $1 billion construction result. It's a World Casino upstate New York that we were lucky enough to be part of that construction on the mechanical end. Howard Jackson, I'm also here to represent Howard Jackson Real Estate. I'm also their Senior Vice President. Howard Jackson is a third generation real estate out of New York. Mr. Jackson is a realtor, he's a financier, author of several books, and has created several real estate programs. We have clients all over the United States and beyond the United States who are looking for equity investments and our joint venture opportunities in commercial real estate. These are some of the locations that where we're looking for joint venture partners or equity capital for these projects. We have $1 billion development in Arizona, acquisition of a multifamily in Texas. They're looking for a joint venture partner. We have a brand hotel in Chicago for sale. There's a land development right in front of JFK, waterfront property, very high end. Basically, all of these properties are exclusive off market. Nobody knows about them, only us and our partners. This is directly from the owners, multi-billion-dollar owners of these properties. Same thing, there's a multi-family hotel opportunity. There's two of them. They're upwards of 200 million. There's another one, over $700 million Midtown Manhattan property. There's a development project in New Jersey. They're looking for a joint venture partner. It's upwards of $400 million. They're looking for an equity partner. Basically, I can't read the last one, sorry, need glasses. So that was my short bio, and if anybody has any questions, you can get in touch with our partner, Eliteikon, Ms. Faika Islam. Thank you all once again for coming. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you so much, Andrew Malik. So I'd like now to thank all our speakers for their insightful, informative and interesting talks. I'm sure many of you found very inspirational. I'd like to thank all our sponsors as follows: US Chamber of Commerce, Litroff Consulting, DL Piper, Amchan Dubai, ANPI, Howard Jackson Real Estate, Unite Solitaire and Development. I would like to also thank all our team members. I'd like you to now enjoy your gala dinner and networking event. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful night. Thank you.